All right, so here's some of the digestive enzymes that are actually found specifically released by the small intestine. So these are not produced by the pancreas or anything else. These are released directly by the small intestine. The first one is maltase, which obviously takes maltose and gets us into 2 molecules of glucose, run out of space. Sucrase, which once again, you can figure this out, takes sucrose and it takes it into a glucose and a fructose. Lactase breaks down lactose into a glucose and what we call a galactose. That's OSE. And then trypsin is, once again, that's a protein breaker down, and that's going to generate some amino acids. And when we look at someone who is lactose intolerant, once again, it's because they lack this enzyme right there. They do have these enzymes, and they can't break down the lactose, therefore they have to have it somehow introduced in that way. Another thing, and I'm going to close this up a little bit, is we get some nucleic acids that are being broken down in here. So you get some nucleic acids, and there's 2 enzymes that are going to be responsible for this. The first one is nuclease. Second one is what we call nucleosidase, right there, these 2. And both of these 2, they come from the pancreas. Okay? So these are pancreas generated, help break down some of help break down some of the DNA and RNA that's found in our food, fruits and meats and things like that to be able to get some reusable parts. We want to recycle as much as we can, and this is going to be released in the small intestine. And one thing that's really interesting, most of these enzymes require a very basic pH level. So these are basic. If we go back to this diagram, all of these enzymes need a basic solution. The only one that really needs a acidic level is pepsin, which is once again is released in the stomach. With all that being said, we've now covered basically all the enzymes that are found in the small intestine, mouth, and stomach. So just as a review, for carbohydrate digestion, we need salivary amylase, pancreatic amylase, and maltase. For protein digestion, we have pepsin, trypsin are the 2 major ones. And once again, pepsin's in the stomach, it's acidic, trypsin's in the small intestine. The nucleic acids we just covered, and then lipase, which is released by the pancreas into the small intestine. Make sure you know all those. You want to know a couple things. 1, the name. 2, what it breaks down, what its job is to break down. 3, where is it released? 4, where is it made? What produces it? And then 5, acid or basic. All right, that gets us to the large intestine. So once again, the small intestine, its main function is to digest, but then also to absorb nutrients. The large intestine main function is to actually take the waste products, whatever we haven't got, so any waste we get and the 10% from the stomach, and start kind of condensing it. Another name for the large intestine is the colon. There's actually 3 colon parts we'll actually talk about here in a second. The large intestine, we actually get a couple things that we were trying to get out. We're trying to pull out water, okay? Vitamins will be actually pulled out of this. Minerals. All of those things are going to be absorbed into the bloodstream from the large intestine. All the remaining stuff that isn't, we call that feces, and eventually will be leaving the body through the rectum, okay? Or stored in the rectum, excuse me, and it'll leave through the anus. As a review, there's basically 3 things that we want to do in the large intestine. Number 1, we want to recover the water, okay? Along with the water, you're going to get some electrolytes, okay? Those are kind of some of your salts, things that are in your diet to help replace. Oops, misspelled that. E-L. It's L-Y. There we go, electrolytes. Number 2, you're going to actually kind of form and condense your feces. And then 3, we'll do some microbe fermentation, which will help break down the undigestible substances. So that's where the microbes in your gut lining also play a major role in the large intestine. That's why it's a major issue if you have some injury or ulcers in the large intestine. Those can release in your bloodstream, cause some major damage. Here's a look at the whole kind of large intestine, small intestine. A couple key things that you'll need to identify. I'll point out here in a second. First, remember the sphincters of the esophagus. We have another sphincter right down here that I have yet to mention that you'll need to identify. That is your pyloric sphincter. Okay, and then your stomach goes in the duodenum, the jejunum, the ileum we talked about, and then there are 3 colons that you'll need to know. So you get your large colon or intestine here. So the large intestine is the this part right here. You have your ascending, okay, the up, transverse, which goes across front, and then descending colon. Those are the 3 major parts. The appendix, that's that little part right there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about conditions that affect it. At the end of the day, when we get done with digestion, what we end up seeing is kind of the end products. And a couple things that are really important for us to look at is that we want to have everything kind of able to be absorbed in the blood and eventually taken throughout the body. And what will happen is once those end products enter a cell, we're going to use them to build up new things. We're going to make some products. And that process of making new things is called a dehydration synthesis reaction. If you remember back at the beginning of this notes, we actually talked about a hydrolysis reaction. And a hydro, where we talk about water splitting, is where we split things using water. Here, the synthesis part of this equation, we're going to take smaller things, amino acids maybe, and we're going to build them together. And in the process, we're going to lose some water. Okay, that's the building process, the end result of digestion. And as I said, dehydration synthesis is the opposite of hydrolysis. Okay, so that would be in your notes, that section right there. What do? We can take simple sugars, monosaccharides. We can make them into complex carbs. Okay, you can take some fatty acids and glycerols. That's going to make a fat. And you take a bunch of amino acids. You can turn that into a protein. The excess water will be absorbed in the large intestine, and once again, it'll allow us to have a little bit more use of that product. A couple disorders that we want to talk about real quick. And just so you know, the first one is an ulcer. And simply what an ulcer is an opening in the body, basically in the stomach lining. An ulcer can actually happen in the stomach, can happen in the mouth, typically called a canker sore, can happen in the small intestine, large intestine. As I mentioned, the further down you go, the more severe it is. Typically, there's a couple different reasons that what cause it. The best way to treat this, if you do have ulcers, they'll tell you to change your diet, less spicy foods, less things that will cause irritations and increase acid levels. And there's also some medicine you can take, some things that help coat your stomach. Another condition that can happen that's really important is tooth decay. Not brushing your teeth significantly enough can cause some major issues. Okay, so as you can demonstrate here, that's pretty disgusting stuff there. Going to your dentist, getting teeth cleaned. Another thing that's not mentioned on here that really helps, reduction of sugary foods and drinks will also aid in that. The last thing is this diagram right here. That's in a healthy appendix. This is a non-healthy appendix, so this one's been cut out. We just had actually a student miss class because of this. The appendix is a small finger-like projection, and it's found towards the bottom of the start of the large intestine at the ascending portion of the colon. What basically happens is that can be infected, and typically the best response is they'll just cut it, remove it. It's not necessarily that important to us. They have found some evidence that it's helped with preventing of disease and help sure our system's working properly, but you can definitely live without it. If you don't remove it, it can be a serious condition. You can eventually die from it because these bacteria and infection can leak into the rest of the body and cause some major damage. Diarrhea is a condition in which the feces doesn't stay in there enough. We don't pull enough water out, caused by a virus, a bacteria. And once again, typically this isn't that big of a deal. We can take some medicine for that, but it can die. You can die from this condition. I remember when I was a kid and I was in grade school, we used to play Oregon Trail. And one of the ways that you could die was you have dysentery and you died, and they never told you really what that was. Dysentery is a form, it's usually a waterborne illness, and causes you have diarrhea, and you basically die of dehydration from that. So, once again, little things they don't tell kids when you're playing Oregon Trail. The opposite of that is constipation. Okay, once again, it remains in there too long. Constipation can typically caused by not enough fiber, or if you're really dehydrated, it can be a major issue. And so that's why they encourage you to have fiber. Not nearly as severe as you can't die from it as you could diarrhea. But the one thing with this is, for elderly people, this is a major issue. Being backed up can cause, as they try to go to the bathroom or pass their bowels, it can cause changes in their blood pressure and can lead to like strokes and heart attacks and major serious issues. So if you ever notice, a lot of the Metamucils and fiber additives that they try to market or sell are usually to elderly people, because it can be a serious condition. For people your age, not a big deal, but eat your vegetables, drink more water, and it shouldn't be a problem. A couple other orders that I kind of want you to look up and just kind of come to class with a possible cause of or what they are: acid reflux, gallstones, and celiac disease. So I'm not going to talk about those, but it's not a bad. I want you to be able to look at those, tell me what they are, be able to know them for the test. All I got. Go Browns. Talk to you guys later.